let's give a shout out to the one and only Ryoshi, if I pronounce that right. Ryoshi, tomato. Sorry, Ryoshi, if I pronounced that wrong. He says breaking Exodus IO. You guys know about Exodus, right? They, like it says, BSV is active again. Yes, active again. Send, receive, exchange. Exodus welcomes back BSV, and it's about time. Now, I want to state this, okay? Why is it about time? And if anything, why point this out? Now, some people in the community have stated it's supply and demand, Max. That's all it is. Just like you was talking about. Supply and demand. They know what's coming. See what you want. Maybe that's the thing. Maybe that's really a thing. And they realize, people are going to need a place to put their cold storage that they trust. We trust it now. Why? Because maybe they feel as though like we do. Some of us, not all of us. This guy is not a charlatan. He's a real McCoy. Say what you want. Look more into it, right? But that's positive. That's cool. Glad to see it. Win for the BSV community, right? Absolutely. Get into the next part. And I guess, thanks to Elon Musk, Mike Cornwell, for also retweeting it. If you're wondering, well, how does it look? Here's how it looks, basically speaking. Send to BSV address. I mean, it's there. This is literally on what? This is on the Exodus wallet. And normally I would give credit for the person that shared this picture. If he sees it later, he's like probably wondering, why didn't you share it? There's a certain thing you typed. It says, oh my blanketing blank God, I am a Christian. I don't like sharing that. That's not cool in my opinion, but to each his own. I'm not going to do that. That kind of goes against my beliefs. All right. Nothing against you personally, but I'm not going to share that. Okay. All right. So this is worth sharing as well. And, we have talked about Teranode. Michael Middleton was talking about that he himself, when he went to, Acapulco, that blockchain event down in Acapulco, I almost said Acapulco, New Mexico. Is there even such a thing now? Acapulco, Old Mexico, over 2 million TPS. I mean, my God, nothing comes close. So look at this for a second. Look at these stats. This is cool. Very cool. What you see here is this person, Bitcoin hoarder. He bought the dip. Teranode has him pumped. And look at that. Transactions per second compared to some of these other ones. I mean, Visa, MasterCard. Apparently, Visa is faster than MasterCard. I didn't know that. I always thought they were neck and neck, by the way. Look at this. And Teranode outperforms the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, of course, Swift, even the clearinghouse, right? Nothing comes close. The only thing that kind of somewhat comes close is NASDAQ. Outperforms all of it. When was this posted? March 5th. Transactions per second. Very, very cool. All right, let's talk about this as well. How about the GDP of African countries? This is a good one. And if anything, I'll put it up on the other screen to put a little bit more emphasis on it. Let's pull that up. Share that tab instead. And what do you see here? You see gross domestic product in current prices, USD billions. Look at this for a second. Nigeria, 395 billion. All these different ones. The GDP of African countries in 2024. Why even mention this? Well, I'm going to share with you why. So I'm going to pull this up on the other screen once again. And the point is, and this guy does watch the show. Shout out to him. I haven't seen him in a while. But it's BSV Stacker. He says Africa's 3 trillion economy. Just imagine if only 1 trillion goes to BSV to help them to move that money as a way of payments between African companies. Then he goes on to state, when you understand the game, you will make money. YouTubers like these are the ones who make you get wrecked. Well, I'm not going to share that because I don't want to go after other YouTubers. But when cryptos are up, they are the most bullish. When cryptos are down, for them is the end of the world. Remember, take money from your losses. That's a good point. A lot of these particular guys, not him, have made the point of, let me get to the other tab, have made the point that, I never sold a single token. Well, then what are you doing? Or coin? What are you doing? You don't have a plan? Honestly, what are they doing? So I'm going to pull this up. This is now going to be the segment I was telling you about earlier in regards to the one and only Gavin Mail. And Gavin has been killing it with the coverage. And I thought I would share this segment because a lot of you guys want to be informed on what's going on. But if anything, Gavin went into solid detail about this. So this is, what was it? Last night. Usually comes up with another update. Would probably be like today, or maybe it was ready to update as we speak, or maybe it's later tonight. But it says the most important information you will ever need to know. Cracking the case, analyzing Wright's wallets in the Bitcoin video. Now, why am I sharing this part? Well, because we also, as a community, are also going to elaborate a little bit more. So let's introduce it from Gavin. And then after that, we're going to get to Michael Cornwell's findings that he had tagged me and reshared and get into that as well. But Gavin, if you're watching at some point, thank you for all your coverage. BSV community really thanks you big time for your relentless pursuit of the truth and keeping people informed. So shout out to Gavin Mail. Give him a follow over on YouTube and also the X platform. You'll be glad that you did. All right, let's go ahead and play this. Here we go.
Just a few weeks back, I'm telling you, I was convinced Dr. Wright was going to lose this case. And now more and more and more has come forward that he is no doubt about it, Satoshi Nakamoto. And I'm going to show you guys right now how early Genesis blocks have actually moved. I'm going to break down the court case that shows it inside the testimony. And I'm also going to show you where on the blockchain you could see it, where it was moved, and why it was moved according to a court order. So stand by to the end. First of all, shout out to Ryoshi. He was the one that brought this to my attention, and it just needed a little further analysis inside of the actual docket. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So stand by here, and we're going to break it all down. I'm also going to before we do that, I want to also, just a quick plug. There's going to be a huge event. It's going to be it's going to be a much bigger event than I realized. It's going to be on the 16th and 17th in San Francisco. I got the agenda today. It's going to be by Scrypt. It's a hackathon put on by Sino Trinity, and there's going to be guys there like David Case of Ordinals, Scrypt. Apparently the top developer in the whole Bitcoin space. This guy's Mr. Wang by Scrypt. That's according to Xiaowei Liu. This guy's amazing. Ty Everett, Project Babbage, heard a lot about him. Jake Jones, he seems to be the one in charge of the Teranode project, which is this massive scaling, to a 1.5 million transactions a second. Our friend Kurt Walker Jr., we know very well. He's going to be there speaking about future of mining. Thomas Giacomoto, he's also from the Bitcoin Association. There's his Twitter. And then Joshua Petty, Coin Yeezy on Twitter. He's the founder of Twetch. So there's the link right there. It's on my Twitter page. You could book discounted rooms. Just a quick plug on that. Now let's go ahead and get into exactly what we want to talk about in this video here. So, all right. So to take you back inside this case, the estate of Ira Kleiman sued Craig Wright back in 2018 for the Bitcoin holdings, the 1.1 million plus Bitcoin. Ira Kleiman lost. He was determined not to be a partner, and Craig Wright was determined to be the only one in control of these holdings, of the Bitcoin holdings. All right, so huge case precedent. And for those who already know this information, who are on the very inside, like the freaking attorneys or the legal team, they already know exactly what's going on here. So this is all not news to any of them. But I will show you, it is news about the actual Bitcoin wallet addresses moving. All right, from the early days. I'm going to show you how and how they're linked. Now, here's a motion that was withdrawn by Ira Kleiman's team, where they said that they've agreed to accept service on a writ of possession, or I'm sorry, writ of attachment, where they're trying to attach the financial holdings of Dr. Wright and accept this writ. So they stipulated, they had some sort of a settlement between the attorneys, and they said, we'll accept service on this. And basically we'll perform within the next 30 days, or we get a default judgment. We'll basically, file an answer within 30 days. So there's an action, a court action, an instrument that's being acted on right now. This is what I would call it being acted on. Now let's go back into what's being acted on, because there's a large amount of money. It's something like $144 million that needs to be paid, or, let's say it's millions of dollars that need to be paid. The exact number, I'm not sure. So we've got Dr. Wright's back all the way back on August 5th, 2019, inside the same case. He filed this, his attorneys filed this notice to the court that he was filing an exhibit that he introduced into evidence on 2019 in front of the court. So there's a hearing on 2019, and I'm going to break down. I'm going to take you right inside that hearing. I got the transcript, the freaking real juicy stuff. I'm going to pull it up here in a moment. So stand by. Now, but this is about, after that hearing, he filed this evidence saying, and it was about the Bitcoin wallet addresses that he had control over. All right. So, and I'm going to highlight just one address, because this is 455, not 9 pages of addresses. All right. So I'm just going to highlight one, and it's very important because the date is specific. It's actually this address here. It ends in NCNB. I've got it highlighted. Now that address is actually going to be showing up here in boom, right here on blockchain.com Explorer. You'll see that same address right here, right? NCNB, Bitcoin address. 50 BTC was sent out of the wallet just a few days ago. Somebody just moved the 50 Bitcoin out of this early 2010 address. All right, we got August 11, 2010. That's important because of what I'm going to show you in the transcript on the date. So take note of that address. That address has just been moved. Somebody just sold 50 BTC out of it. All right, so now let's look at the court order itself. Okay, so this is the transcript, not the order. This is, again, the same case, docket 264. Evidence here, this is the transcript from the evidence hearing before the magistrate judge. Appearances are made. So now if we go down to page 19, page 18, they've got Mr. Shatters appearing as a fact witness, not an expert witness. Question, Mr. Shatters, how many criteria did you use to conduct your analysis? A, answer, there were 6 total criteria. What is the first criteria that you used to window down the universal Bitcoin address to a more narrow universe of Bitcoin addresses? Answer, well, the first was a date range. Dr. Wright asserts that he was mining between a pair of dates beginning from the first block, January 3rd, 2009, through the 21st of August, 2010. So I excluded any addresses outside that range. Skipping ahead a little further now, inside the court order, we got page 50. Hear that noise? 51. Question from the attorney. Now so you had, Dr. Wright gave you a date cutoff. Is that right? Yes. August 21st, 2010. So Dr. Wright said, I don't want you to look at anything beyond August 21st, 2010. Oh, correct. Well, he didn't say that he didn't want me to look at it. He just said that he stopped mining until that date. That's when he stopped mining. All right. So we've now seen the transcript of what he talked about, right? And this transcript is prior. So this is the hearing. And then shortly thereafter, the document, under the threat of contempt, Dr. Wright was compelled to file just a few days later, right? Provide notice of filing the exhibit according to the August 5th hearing. So that was the hearing we were just reading. And then this is the notice that he's filing these exhibits. And in that exhibit, one of the addresses, and I invite anyone like Ryushi or others to take the time to go through and find out how many more there are. Sorry, I think there's at least 10 that we've seen, but I'm not going to do 10. It's going to take too long. So we've got one address right here. That's the one address that's definitely in this as evidence, according to those early Bitcoin blocks. Now we've seen it's in this court testimony, and now we see that there's a reason to move those blocks. Why? Because we got an order here. There's a stipulation between the parties in the same case where these guys have stipulated, according to a meet and confer, parties will accept service of a writ, and accordingly, plaintiff's motion for default judgment was withdrawn because defendant Wright, he wasn't performing on paying the bill, paying the debt. It's like 144 million. So now there's an order by the court, a stipulation. They're withdrawing the motion. They're not going to have to go through and fight about it. And Wright's going to stipulate, according to what the attorneys are saying, to pay. That's what he's stipulating to. And so now, according to that block explorer, we know that same address right there. It just moved. So people who are saying whale moved. No, that's not, yeah, it's a whale, but that's Dr. Wright. I mean, we've now put that together according to the court testimony. Now, I'm not just saying, oh, conspiracy. I'm reading to you a transcript. I'm reading to you the testimony and the stuff that's been submitted as evidence inside Kleiman. So there's a big difference between internet nonsense and evidence inside the court. Now, that has been accepted as evidence, and these addresses are in there. So that's good. That's an issue of fact that's been determined by the court, meaning that is one of the addresses inside the court case that belonged to Dr. Wright. Now we know that that address has just moved 50 Bitcoin. All right. So he obviously has control to sell 50 Bitcoin right here, which is a total of $3.2 million to get paid. Now we also see that there's motive for him to get paid because of the court order for him to sell those. All right. So I want to thank Ryushi, on Twitter for really kind of bringing this to my attention. And, it really just breaking it all down. So hopefully, yeah, it's crazy as we're outside of the big Satoshi identity trial right now, this thing just happens. And I wanted to get it out there so that the court can take notice of this because, hey, the court can take notice of whatever he takes notice of. He's the judge. Judge Miller is the one in control of the case that's going to make the decision. And if something big like this happens in another case and the dots are now connected that, wow, cryptographic proof, the keys are moving from the early Genesis blocks. Oh, wow, this is not just some coincidence. There's court orders and evidence hearings that I've just read through on the transcript, which the court can see for himself in determining, well, okay, all the other stuff aside, now we're obviously seeing these early keys, these early blocks moving, and they're linked to Dr. Wright according to this transcript. So that's the determination that the court's made, and now I've just connected the dots thanks to Ryushi, and hopefully the court can take notice of that. Ultimately, it's just now. This is just one more piece. It's not obviously before the Copa trial. It's not there, but it is something that the court could, in his own determination, if he wanted to take notice of it, he could. So this is videos out there, and hopefully you can get this over to him, and he can decide how he feels about this information. Because I'll tell you right now, there's just too much doubt on the Copa side, way too much doubt from the experts. They could not prove beyond a reasonable doubt. There was just, like we broke down in yesterday's video on all the fatal holes that they had in their case, and now the big thing about moving keys from the early Genesis blocks. The early Bitcoin addresses is all happening right now. I mean, that's just one. I think it's a total of 10 for sure that we've seen from the Tulip Trust documents. So that was the Tulip Trust documents. That's what that was from. So if you like this video, hit the like button, share this video, get the word out there, man. We're looking for the trial starting back up and closing on Monday. And, thanks to Ryushi. And don't forget to subscribe to that, to meet up, to go to San Francisco. I'm going to put a link on the, I'll put a little video at the end. You can find the video to how to do it if you want look at it again. Otherwise, go to my Twitter page and you can see one of my recent tweets. There's a link on how to register and how to get the discounted rooms at the Fairmont Hotel. I'll see everybody at the top.
Thank you so much to Gavin Mail for keeping us informed. Obviously, I'd like to do a little bit more in regards to this outline and show you some things. So, thought I would start off in regards to what he presented. Right? Wow. He really killed it on that. But let's get into this as well. So remember how he's talking about Ryushi? Well, check this out from him. Full screened. Look what's mentioned here. Just in. Let me just double check my settings. I want to make sure that I'm not muted. Hold on. Yeah, I'm not. All right. So Ryushi. He goes on to mention Justin Kleiman versus Wright. Craig mined from block 1 until what? August. August of what? 21 of 2010. 2010 coins are moving. Craig is moving coin to prove he is Satoshi. I mean, some people agree, disagree, but U.S. federal court judge, quote, you mined the first Bitcoin? CSW, quote, I mined Bitcoin from January 9th to August of 2010, which is in trust. The trust holds companies. The companies hold the legal rights to the Bitcoin. There's definitely a bunch of circumstantial evidence, which when put together makes a strong case. But these are 2010 50 coin reward blocks. We know Satoshi was the main miner back then. These wallets haven't been touched for 14 years. My God, who has had the balls to do nothing with these wallets? Yeah, I mean, you want to talk about diamond hands. Satoshi Nakamoto is literally the king of that statement, right? Maybe someone who has locked them away in the trust. Some of these addresses are from the Shatters list that is thought to belong to Satoshi. Here's, all of that. And it says, I would dare say that the other addresses belonging to the same person entity, since all of them have moved within 3-minute interval. Roughly just over 2,000 coins have been moved, equivalent to around $140 million. Craig owes WK in the Kleiman case $140 million. Kleiman lawyers just canceled their motion for default judgment. Kleiman, tomato, right? Payment was agreed upon March 5th, 2024. That was just a couple days ago. Okay. Here's the reference if you want to look more into it. And if anything, let's pull this up. So I think you guys see this pretty well on your screen. And if anything, take that off for just a moment. So, yeah, look at that. Interesting. What's going on with that? Look at the dates. So created on, and I'll put this on the other screen. This is back to a little bit what Gavin was talking about, Gavin Mail. So you should see this plain as day. I'll have to kind of scoot it over. So originally, look what it says, different dates, but all back to 2010, right? All verifiable, shows the blocks, block size, all that stuff. And then on the left, what do you consistently see? Literally 2 days ago, March 5th, 2024, boom, all there. I mean, you can look at it yourself if you choose to do so, right? So I think that's definitely worth pointing out. Let's take you back to this tab. And my God, right? Like, what is going on with this, right? I do agree at this point. He's blessed with the sharpest mind on the planet and had 10 years to plan it all. I mean, wow. And then, of course, there's this. I mean, it's a little bit more of that. I guess we'll pull that up as well. Some of you guys like that stuff. Share this tab instead. Same type of situation. A little bit more blurry on the screenshot. I do apologize. Not me. I didn't make the screenshot, but yeah, keep in mind it's the original source of where this was all at. So crazy stuff if you look more into it. I mean, even the font. I don't know. I mean, it says 2024 right there, but again, it's not the best screenshot. Jumping back to this, I think this is a little bit of what Gavin was sharing. United States District Court, Southern District of Florida. Look what it says. Talks about Ira Kleiman as the personal representative of what? The estate of David Kleiman and W&K Info Defense Research LLC. Plaintiffs versus Craig Wright. Defendant, the case number. Notice of withdrawal of motion. I know I don't have the full screen, but you should be able to see it pretty well. Plaintiffs hereby notify the court that after meeting and conferring, Greenberg Taurig, PA, has agreed to accept service of a writ and right into answer within 30 days. Anyway, according to plaintiff's motion for default judgment, ECF number 1068 is withdrawn. Dated when? March 5th. Again, March 5th. Respectfully submitted. And you see that, right? Friedland LLP. I mean, there's the reference. right? All that stuff. Let's get to the next page. On this one, I will blow it up a little bit more because it might be kind of hard to see on that one. So let's pull this up. Here we go. Look what's mentioned here. Okay. You have back to, on the search, think about it, docket underscore ID, what you see there, right? Go further down. What do you have? Kleiman versus Wright. Docket number does match, I guess, apparently some of the stuff. Date filed February 14th, 2018. Date terminated December 7th, 2021. And then the main part was to where it's highlighted. I'm glad he highlighted that. Because, above that, you see the parties that are involved. Even mentions Craig Wright, the attorneys. But Exhibit D2, Document 266, attachment, notice by Craig Wright on the description of filing exhibit introduced by Dr. Craig Wright at the August 5th, 2019 hearing. Attachments. Number 1 is Exhibit D-2, modified text on 8/16/2019, entered, the day before, which was the 15th of, August 2019. And then here, 1741, take the whole thing. So take 1741 and the H2KS, you know what I mean? And then boom, it matches on the search for this, which is interesting, so there's that. And then getting back into this, hold on a second, I gotta get back to that. I want to jump to this. This is from a guy named Joe. Boy, has he been taking a lot of heat. Let's go ahead and show that as well. So, a lot of people from the BSV community, recognize his findings. A lot of BTC people have just absolutely like lynching this guy. I want to share, of course, the back and forth. It's not just, hey, look at all the positive stuff about BSV, but share what the other side was saying as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and share this. And what do you see here? You see a public accountant that worked with Craig Wright since 2010, like it says, has verified what? Accounting records showing Craig owns 819,000 Bitcoin. Like, my God. Getting into this, let's blow it up just a little bit more. I know it's kind of short on that one, but hold on. I'll show it on the other screen. Show this tab instead. And what do we have? Well, we have a lot. And I know it's stretched out, but we'll get into it here in a second. It shows this. Hold on, I'm trying to fix this real quick. Background and qualifications. I'll leave it on that one because it's a little bit too hard when it's stretched out for me to navigate through it. It says, I have worked as a public accountant and bookkeeper in Australia for the last 20 years. Prior to that, I held C-suite management roles in various public and private corporations with revenues of Australian dollar 8 to 100 million per annum over 20 years. This part that's highlighted. I have known the first claimant since 2010 when I was introduced to him by another client of mine and have provided a range of services to him, companies he is involved with since then, including accounting, bookkeeping, and financial consultancy. All right. Let's get to the next part. It talks about his starting point with his ledger account. Let me get further down. Yeah. I'm going to get down to this second to last part, or third to last part. It says transactions occurred. Hold on. Let's just get to that. There we go. Transactions occurred for a relatively short period of time from 2009 onwards, and for the most part related to the movement of assets from Information Defense Party, Limited, Information Defense, and Integers Party Limited, which is that, right? In Australia. It is my understanding that the movement of assets from Information Defense and Integers came about because the Australia Tax Office had valued research undertaken by those companies and other assets at nil during its 2009 audit of the first claimant and related Australian company set by the first claimant. Following that audit, The first claimant took the opportunity to move research and assets belonging to his companies offshore at a nil valuation. This last part's also good. It says B, those assets were duly entered into the accounts of W2 or we, if you want to call it just that, the valuation of US dollar amount 250,000 for the Bitcoin software and the Bitcoin database, and for instance, number 2, USD, which was 30 cents per coin in respect of its Bitcoin holdings. These transactions were completed in financial year 2010 at what was considered fair market value, at least back then. I mean, things have dramatically changed since then, right? He says, I have cited Bitcoin addresses and have randomly tested various addresses to test their validity. In each case, the addresses were created in the period of 2009 to 2010 and were still valid. Not transferred out of, though, right? The total number of BTC is 819,818. What about what recently happened on the 5th? I mean, just think about it for a second. All right, let me take you to this next part real quick. All right, I know this is a lot of the nerd stuff, but I think it's definitely worth pointing out. So, I want to pull this up. This is back to this guy, Joe. And, it's going to get kind of heated here in a second. So, this part really ticked off people from the BTC community. And it says, Copa didn't like this quote unquote witness. What is this all about? Well, let's take you to the image. Let's pull it up on the other screen. And this is also worth pointing out. This is what Joe is referring to. So it says name a witness, all right? In regards to B, it says Copa's witnesses on that gray line. Name a witness, Mr. Steve Lee. It says independent board of Copa. That's his role and description. There's Mr. Martin Malmy of the Video Link, computer scientist, software engineer who corresponded with Satoshi regarding Bitcoin shortly after its release in January 2009 into 2011. Interesting people here, right? Absolutely. How about Dr. Adam Back, excuse me. Cryptographer. Let me double check my settings real quick. I'm going to make sure that you guys can see this. You can. Okay, cool. But cryptographer and developer in the field of cryptography, paper by Dr. Back, cited in the white paper. CEO of Blockstream, D19 in the BTC Core claim. Mr. Nicholas Baum, retired solicitor who corresponded with Satoshi regarding Bitcoin shortly after its release in January 2009. Mr. Dustin Trammell, Video Link, says information security research scientist with the interest in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency. There's a whole bunch of people here. Another person, I'm not gonna get to all of them, but this one is interesting. Miss Hillary Pearson, retired solicitor, UK patents editor for Thomson Reuters Practical Law. Another thing kind of caught my attention was this guy, Professor Daniel Bernstein, cryptographer and professor in the Department of Computer Science at the University of Illinois. My uncle actually went there. Interesting. Anyway, going further down, hold on. There's another person that's kind of interesting. Mr. Lucas de Groot, typeface designer, professor of type design at University of Applied Sciences in Potsdam, Germany, unwilling to give evidence, at the trial. There's a lot of people here, right? So here's the thing. When you get into it, the people who interacted, both BSV and, BTC community people, it gets kind of crazy here in a bit. Not that I'm trying to make drama, because it's not about that. So this guy named Peter Faketoshi Perjury says, what has Copa's witnesses got to do with hearsay witness of CSWs? And, there's some responses in regards to this. Joe says, I think they reached out to him. And then this part, why would Copa reach out to some random accountant? You need to do better than that. Remember, CSW was the one that needed to bring evidence that he's Satoshi. I mean, he makes a good point. Copa, you will note, were not required to provide evidence, just witnesses to refute CSW's evidence. Now, we will pause on that for a moment. This is where the other side, they do throw a good argument about this. Now, Joe could have just backed off, right? But there's more. Check this out for a second. This is good stuff. I mean, shout out to him. So, yes, refute that, the evidence. Joe goes on to saying, sorry, been, several at the same time. Craig asked for statement, or been reading several at the same time. Craig asked for statement on behalf of Wright international accounts. And this guy, he feels as though that this is the solid evidence. But he says, I'm glad that his witness confirmed that he was the claimant in this trial. Several BSVers have been confused about this, so thanks for providing additional clarification. And what are they talking about? Do they have anything solid in regards to this? I mean, I'm going to say no. But look at this just for a second. Here's the other argument. I mean, it's worth pointing out. Actually, maybe I made that too big. Let's just go back for a second. I guess that'll work. I'll just go back and forth. So remember how I was showing that earlier on the other particular page? It says directions for joint trial. It says for the purpose of the joint trial, the defendant in the Copa claim and the claimants to the BTC core claim, Dr. Wright, Wright International Investments Limited, and Wright International Investments shall be known as quote unquote the claimants. Okay. The other parties participating in the joint trial, the 17th and then, the 1st to the 15th, and then also the 17th to the 19th, and then also on the 20th, defendants in the BTC core claim shall be known as quote unquote the defendants. And then getting more into this on the other side of the page, it goes on to mention that the reference back to the whole thing of information defense, integers, and so on. We already quoted that, so I didn't want to get necessarily into that. But let's pull this back up. Excuse me. And they have, of course, this nice little, I don't know, I wouldn't call it nice, but it's just constant back and forth. So this Copa wouldn't reach out because the random accountant, hopefully you see this, sorry, there's a lot of me going back and forth. The random accountant has given a witness statement stating that, W2, or we just call it we, had 819818 BTC on its books, and Copa cannot refute this material fact. However, the judge will have to read this witness testimony and know that Copa did not challenge it or point out. Then, of course, this guy gets involved in it again 6 hours ago. He says that the judge will assess it on evidence. It is hearsay. An accountant will file what his client tells him. Besides, he was recounting the history of we as told by CSW, and therefore is hearsay. It's a nothing burr out of next to zero weight, but cling to it if you like. And then some people are saying it's just the facts. And then this guy goes on to state again. I mean, it's just back and forth. I just want to hear, like, I understand there's comments, guys. Some people are like, well, I read it all, but this guy, provides, I guess you could say, a good argument. But Joe didn't give up here, which is, I think it's cool. I'm going to show you that here in a bit. It says it wasn't challenged for the reasons given. Copa were restricted in the number of forgeries they could contest. If you remember, Joe goes on to say they were not restricted from cross witnesses. The witnesses, according to Peter, wasn't on the stand. And then Joe goes on to say because they didn't bring him to the stand. And that is where I decided to show all this to you. I know it's a lot of stuff. Then Peter, again, they had to focus on 20 pieces to refute. This is hearsay. Piece is irrelevant. I'm surprised that you're coming over this piece of nonsense. Again, you could totally see who's for what and who isn't. But, if it's a good argument and he has something solid, it should be presented. Joe says no need to. The document stands on its own. Also, he references an ATO document in evidence to corroborate the story. He doesn't know that, what there is to be upset about. I'm just saying an accountant claims he made these financial moves in 2010 and an ATO document supports it. Nothing more. I mean, he could have ended it right there. He could just ended it right there. And this guy, of course, is going to come back. But in reality, you should literally stop right there if you want to have a key takeaway. Now, of course, there's more. This guy, Peter, says no, he was recounting what CSW told him, and a document created by Craig Wright for the ATO and Kleiman trial says the same thing. Did you understand why this is weak hearsay yet? Then Joe won't stop, which is cool. He's not going to back down. He said, if you're suggesting he is reviewing this for the first time, that isn't what he has stated. I mean, this is a good back and forth. Not that I try to get involved in all this type of stuff because it gets kind of crazy. Let's just be honest. But I will zoom in on this one. So Joe states, my starting point in preparing the ledger account was to access We's accounting records which commenced in 2009 when the company was incorporated and began trading. I'm familiar with this information through my work with the first claimant over the years. In summary. So then Peter comes back one more time, says, right. So where in that sentence does it suggest that he was there in 2009, filing in 2009 for we? Answer, it doesn't. You cannot see how weak this testimony is. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, that is a good point. Joe comes back. Shout out to Joe. Of course, he didn't file in 2009 for financial year 2010. Duh. Deflection. You understand my point perfectly. Then it goes on to mention, I have provided a range of services for him since I met him in 2010. I mean, that's pretty bold to say you know him. And here it is. It says, on this highlight, I have known the first claimant since 2010 when I was introduced to him by another client of mine and have provided a range of services to him and companies he is involved with since then, including accounting, bookkeeping, and financial consultancy. I mean, this is what we presented earlier. I think even Gavin mentioned some of this stuff. And then the last two things. I know this is a lot to get into, guys. Peter says, right, now point to where he filed for right, we or similar from 2010 that includes Bitcoin. You realize that if there was evidence of that, CoinGeek would be having a week-long party, right? I mean, that's a stretch. They are not. There's no evidence, just a loose connection like this. And then it kind of unwinds. I'll get to the last part here in a second. Joe says, and you don't say right after you just told me he didn't suggest he did his accounting in 2010. I imagine the person who prepares taxes must sign that they did, assuming Australia does things similar. That's a good point. That's a very true point. Then this part, okay, so given that there are no filings of voluminous amounts of Bitcoin legitimately filed with the ATO, the next question should be, why is that? And then of course there's more replies. And then open up another thing and another thing, and then on and on and on. And in reality, it's just a constant back and forth. And they do have great arguments, but my thing would be, basically speaking, where is it? Yeah. Transactions occurred for a relatively short period of time from 2009 onwards. Again, back to this whole thing. Information defense and integers. We already cited that. I know this is for some of you guys you may be thinking, good God, like I don't really, follow all this stuff. But a lot of people do. And, here's another document. And again, this is from the BTC, side of things. What is this date? Friday, May 22nd, 2020. Kleiman versus Wright. Good afternoon, sirs. I'm a criminal investigator with the Australian Taxation Office, currently conducting a criminal investigation related to Craig Stephen Wright. I understand that representing Mr. Ira Kleiman for a matter involving Wright within the USA. Part of an investigation, we'd like to speak with Mr. Kleiman with the prospect of obtaining a witness statement from him in relation to his knowledge of certain matters and seek your assistance in contacting him. Can you please advise if you're able to assist me with my inquiries? Regards, Melanie. Who is she? She's Melanie Johnson, investigator of criminal investigations, tax evasion and crime, private groups, high wealth individuals, Australian Taxation Office. Like, what the heck, right? And basically speaking, I mean, it's just kind of like they left it there on the moment. Who do you feel as though is right? Or do all roads lead to this right here? And at the end of the day, we'll find out. I don't know. I know it's a lot to get into in regards to that, but I thought I would bring that at least to you. Now, I know this is quite the deep dive tonight. I do want to get into this part, and this is worth pointing out as well. So, while there's a lot of that's being mentioned in regards to BSV, look at this for a second, okay? Goes on to mention, again from Rushi, says probably nothing. In reality, yes, he's kind of joking. 26.9 BTC that was sent to the Genesis Satoshi wallet. So again, whether it's a back and forth argument from, members of the BSV community and members from the BTC community, this, in my opinion, kind of trumps all this. All right. So Genesis Satoshi wallet on January 5th. BTC amount coincides with what, guys? The UK Copa course requirement for $900,000 worth of cost payment. Roughly just over 2,000 coins have been moved March 5th, 2024, again, 2 days ago, equivalent to about 140 million. Craig owes WK In the Kleiman case, 140 million. These are 2010 50 coin reward blocks. Remember how we talked about that earlier? We know Satoshi was the main miner back then. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if people really, maybe they don't care, whatever the case be. All right. In conclusion, why we bring this all up tonight? Well, this is what I gathered. Okay. So it's this whole thing. Kleiman versus Wright. Craig mined these blocks back in August 21st, 2010. The coins are, of course, moving, like we point out in regards to some of these dates, March 5th and so on. Craig is moving coins to do what? To prove that he's Satoshi Nakamoto. Why would he not do that? So basically, it's this. Back to the reference of the U.S. federal court judge of quote unquote, you mined the first Bitcoin, and then, of course, the whole outline. But at the end of the day, for you, me, and maybe even the people who are like, they're saying Craig Wright's, fake Toshi's a charlatan and so on. This whole trial, whether you've been paying attention to it or not, is very significant in many different ways. So the whole thing about Kleiman versus Wright specifically, okay? Kleiman versus Wright case. What about the possible settlement? The movement of these old Bitcoins, okay, potentially by Craig Wright, could seem as though it's a way to settle the ongoing legal battle with Ira Kleiman's estate, which is, heads back to the reference of Kleiman versus Wright, right? No pun intended. The amount moved, which is, of course, around 140 million, give or take, based on market conditions, is suspiciously close to what Craig Wright alleges he owes the estate. The cancellation of the motion for default judgment, though, by Kleiman's lawyers further strengthens this possibility. We're pointing out. What about the whole thing of like, well, if the coins get moved, we can confirm that Satoshi is who he is, like what Mike Cornwell was saying. Like, this proves that this is Satoshi. I think we also need to understand it's still circumstantial evidence. I know I'm going to take some heat from the BSV guys in regards to that. Hey, I could take it, but I still need to be, objectionable about some of this stuff and look at both sides of the argument and also look at the evidence. So circumstantial evidence, Wright claims to have mined these Bitcoins from early 2009 to 2010. But for me, my key takeaway is what we saw presented earlier. I'm leaning more towards, he's the real Mccoy. But from the judicial point of view and so on in court, I think they are looking at being circumstantial. Whether we want to agree with that or not, teach his own, right? The wallets, though, involved haven't been touched, as we know, for over 14 years. And so the address is linked to the list thought to belong to Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, right? That's the whole point. This movement could be seen as Wright trying to prove his claim of being, of course, just that, Satoshi Nakamoto, by accessing these old wallets. Now, this is, of course, back to the whole thing of people from, the other side, BTC maxis, or even people that just are not even involved in either side or don't care. They stated that, numerous times, I've seen it in the recorded videos and so on in the comments, people say, well, why doesn't he just go ahead and do it right now? Just prove who he is. Well, there's certain processes that are involved in regards to that. So at the end of the day, it's like this, right? There's a few things that we need to point out. What kind of impact on BTC and even BSV, would happen from here? Because I think a lot of people want to know, if Craig Wright is the real McCoy and he decides to hell with BTC core, right? And, BSV is the real McCoy and just dumps the whole thing, what would happen? Well, for one, it would create uncertainty. The implications for the future of Bitcoin and BSV, of course, are unclear. But some people speculate that Wright himself, CSW, might be attempting to dump these coins, which, of course, would affect the price. I mean, you dump one, the other one goes to the moon, as the saying goes. And that's why a lot of you guys are pay attention to, like, hey, I need to get on BSV. It's my second chance at Bitcoin back in 2010, 2013 or whatever, under $100. I get it. I've even stated that. But the long-term impact, let's face it, is kind of difficult to predict. But in regards to BSV holders, this news might be a positive sign for us as holders, as it suggests that Wright has access to a significant amount of Bitcoin, and the resources that he has might be more of a bigger win for the BSV ecosystem. You know, at the end of the day, it's like this, right? While we want to pay attention to not just our point of view, we have to outweigh, the other point of view, in my opinion. Some people say that the other side doesn't have any real solid evidence. I don't know. It's worth hearing the other side, but um, even if Wright is behind the movement, his true motivation remains unclear. Other than, I think he just wants to prove that he is the main guy who is behind it, and I don't think that's necessarily unclear, but it could be a settlement or an attempt um, to basically recognize that, look, I try to settle with you guys. What was it? He gave Copa 7 days a while back. This was like over a month ago, right? 7 days to say, hey, let's do a settlement. You guys can have Bitcoin Cash. You can have Bitcoin ABC, aka eCash. You can have, was it Bitcoin Gold? Whatever other ones are out there. Let him have his baby. I think he's getting frustrated with this. I'd be frustrated with it too, especially if I was the real Mccoy, which I think he is. And I think that's what's going on. As we know, it's a developing story. I know there's a lot to explain tonight, maybe too much from my end, but it's been on the minds of a lot of you guys. I definitely think it is all worth pointing out.